Hi, today I'm going to show you how to thread your ready-made warp using the newest piece of equipment from Saori. This particular method you will not find in the purple book because it's brand new, okay? To do this, you will need I believe Kenzo is calling it the beaming station, warping, threading, beaming station. You will need, obviously, your warp of whatever size you want. Today we're using a 150 by 30 meter. That's 150 threads by 30 meters long. We're going to use a 5 dent per centimeter reed. We will need a measuring tape, and you'll see that I have two of them out on the table because I can never find one, so they're everywhere. Your heddle hook, which is the long, flat metal one, not that short one that we used to take the inside set off. A pair of scissors. You will need the reed cap from your loom and the warp roller from your loom and the disc, okay? So before we get started though, oh, and I also have back here two pieces of carpet. If you don't have two pieces of carpeting, you can use two towels, really to just about anything that's going to give you some resistance for the threads. You don't want to just have the threads on your table because then you will have no weight and no resistance. And you'll see what I mean by that in just a minute. Oh, and a little piece of blue tape is my preferred way of marking where I'm going to begin. Now, before we get started with any of this, we're going to do the first section of Denise Math. There are two sections to Denise Math. And the first, sorry, I'm using a pencil and I'm supposed to be using this lovely dark blue Sharpie so that it will show up. We need to be able to get our threads centered in the reed. To do that, whatever number of threads you have, we're going to take the number of threads for our warp and we're going to divide by the number of dents per centimeter. So in this case, we're using a 150 thread warp, and our reed is a 5 dent per centimeter reed. When I divide 5 into 150, I get 30 centimeters. And that is my approximate width in the reed. And I believe all of this math is somewhere on my website. If not, it will be soon. So this is part one of Denise Math, the reed. Part two has to do with our heddles. And that's going to look too busy, so we're just going to turn that page now. Let's look at our heddles. Saori harnesses have 210 heddles per harness. When I thread my heddles, I like to leave threads in between, or empty heddles in between my threads, so that I can have if I want to put a supplemental warp in, I have a place to put it. If I find I've made an error and forgotten a thread, I have a place to put it. if I've only used every heddle between the two sides of my warp, I have nothing left to use. Of course, I could double up, and that would be okay too. But we have 210 heddles per harness. I have a 150 thread warp. So I take 210 and I subtract 150. So now we go 0. Whoops. That's, I don't know how to do math. I think that's right, right? 60? Is that where I'm at? Okay. So I have 60 that are going to be completely unused. Let me show you what this is going to look like. When I do my heddles, or my harnesses, each harness, I'm going to have approximately 30 unused over here and 30 unused over here. That's that 60. In here, I'm going to have 150 heddles. 75 of those are going to have threads going through them. 75 of them are going to be empty. I'm going to use one, move one. Now, why do we want to do that? I'm going to apologize right now to my cameraman because we are changing things from what I told him we were going to do. When we look at our harnesses, we want our harnesses, when they are hanging, to be mostly balanced so that on that roller they're not like this. I don't want these to be the heddles I'm using and all of my unused heddles over here. Okay? If I take and I have the majority of my heddles in the center, my harness is going to be balanced because the majority of the weight is hanging in here, not off at one end, which just makes your loom a happier loom. So that is the reason we go through this little exercise, and in a moment I will show you how we figure out where those 30 are the Denise way. Cut. Okay, so to set this up, the beaming station for warping a ready-made, I'm going to start with my warp roller off of my loom. Okay, my ratchet area is on this side, so here's my clasp over here. I'm going to take my ready-made warp. Now here's the important thing with this, is that when we undo this warp, I want to make sure that just like on my loom, it is coming off the warp roller from the underside like this, so that it would feed up, coming as if my pedals were on this side. I don't want it looking like this. That will not feed on your warp or on your loom. So I'm going to set it like this. I'm going to put my warp beam through, and I'm going to put this little guy, my warp disc, on. And now it slides into its place, right like that. And the warp disc comes over here. If you have a CH60, your latch is going to be on the other side because your warp roller goes in differently, but the warp is still going to behave the same. You want it coming off the loom or off the warp roller like this. Okay? Now I'm going to take this up and I'm going to come over. Remember those two pieces of carpeting? I'm going to sandwich my threads between them. Kind of up close. And sandwich. And now I'm just going to add a piece of wood on top to give me a little bit of weight. On the back side, now if you've ever taken a warp class with me before, and you'll see this on Warping at the Loom, I tell you don't ever, ever, ever cut that entire tape off at once. It is an accident waiting to happen. At the warping beaming station secure on your table, you can do that. So I'm just going to reach back over here and I'm going to cut that tape completely off my warp. And there we go. Now the exception to this would be if you have cats who like to crawl on your table, or young children who like to play with your things while you're not watching. Then I think it would still be a safe idea to not cut the entire tape off. But since we don't have either of those here, we're safe in doing that. And now I'm going to set this latch so that the only way I would be able to wind that would be back onto the roller if I chose to do that. Your harnesses are going to go into the areas here. You remember that where they go because it's the square peg that goes into the round hole. And the bottom part of your harness slides out through the slot provided. The top of your harness, let me get a good shot of this. The top of your harnesses are always painted. Mine happen to be blue, sometimes they're red, but they are always painted. They go up. And you'll see that you'll know that because you have your little hole on the top bar of your harnesses. Okay. So my square peg and my round hole. Boom. Now, I'm right-handed, so when I get ready to do this, I am going to work from my left to my right, keeping my working hand in front of me. If I were left-handed, I would work from the right-hand side to the left, keeping my working hand in front of me. Okay, so I have 210 petals in this group right here, more or less. Sometimes there's 216, sometimes there's 208, about 210. It's not rocket science. I'm going to divide them in half. This gives me 110 and 110. I'm going to come over here and I'm going to divide that in half. That gives me 55. I wanted 30. More or less. It doesn't matter that it is exact because majority of your weight is going to be in the center, as we talked about before. So now I'm going to take these, but remember I'm right-handed, so I'm going to work from my left to my right, and I'm just going to push them out of my way. This is 30 approximately on my front harness. I could go through that same exercise on my back harness, but I'm lazy. 30, more or less. and everything else I'm going to take and push out of my way. And now I'm going to take my reed cap Sorry, having to remember how Kenzo told me to do this. And I'm going to put it on my warp extension, or my beaming station. Your beaming station will also come with these little metal tubes, and they are going to sit down in here on top of those pegs, so that when you put your reed in here, supposedly then it won't fall out. This is giving you something to work against. It's got, if these weren't here, this would feel not as secure. So those just slide down like that, and there you go. Okay? I find it easier if I leave it kind of tilted backwards. Now the first thing we did in Denise Math was our reed, because we want our warp mostly centered in our reed. And our number, going back and referring to our handy dandy little math, was that we were going to be 30 centimeters in the reed. That's 30 centimeters full across. If you'll notice right here and right here, I have a mark on my reed. That is the center of my reed. I want 30 centimeters centered, which means I want 15 centimeters. And in case you're wondering, if you have a nifty measuring tape that winds up into itself, and you see inches on one side, flip it over. It's likely that your centimeters are on the back. And I'm going to find 15. I'm going to put 15 on my center mark, and I'm going to come out here, and I'm going to put a little piece of blue tape. Now, why am I going to put that little piece of blue tape? Because inevitably I have forgotten to bring my reed hook with me, and I'm going to have to get up and go find it. In which case, when I get back here, I'm not going to remember where to start, and I'm going to have to remeasure again. And then I will have realized that I left my coffee somewhere and have to get up and go get it. And you get the picture. Okay, so I have everything here. I know where I'm starting. I'm going to take my reed hook. I'm going to pull one heddle into the center out here. We're going to call this area here our working space. And I want you to get in the habit of seeing one heddle and one heddle only in your working space. If you do that, you will never have any of the problems that we're going to show you later. I'm going to take my heddle hook, and I am going to go through the dent in my reed, through the eye of my heddle, and I'm going to come back here. I'm going to grab that first thread, and I'm going to ride the smooth side of my heddle hook, the back side, on the bottom of the eye. Let me show you that again. I'm going to move. That was my one threaded. Here's my one empty or unthreaded. And now I'm coming to the front. Heddle hook with a hook up through the dent, through the eye, grab the thread, and pull. And I'm pulling down and back. It's a very easy motion, and I have threaded my heddle and my reed in one action. And my already threaded and unused are moved to the left. The one I'm working on is on the right. Now what would happen if I threaded this and I left it out here? And I'm going to come and I'm going to use this one. And I'm not paying a lot of attention. It's out here. It's over there. And I come through and like this. I now have my thread that's supposed to be on the left, that's going through the dent on, or excuse me, on the right, is wrapped around this other heddle. We're going to show you in a minute what that's going to look like. I'm going to leave that there on purpose. And in just a minute, we're going to cut, and my lovely assistant Jean is going to finish warping this while I go and start warping another one in another way. Through, grab, and go. Now, I'm going to tell you that honestly, when I'm doing this on my own, I pull 2 out at a time. And I take and I move my unused one, the one that I'm not going to thread, out of my way so that I still have my one that I'm going to thread out here. It doesn't matter if your unused one is moved first or second, as long as you thread one and move one. So see, there's my 2, that one's out of my way, and here's this. Whichever way you can remember to thread and move, thread and move. Remember also that with Saori, we got started when Misao missed a dent in her reed. So don't be afraid to skip dents. Don't be afraid to cram dents. Ooh, what's cramming? Ooh, that's where I'm going to go. Oh, hey, see all 3 of those? I'm putting 3 right there. That might be 4. Out of the way, out of the way. Here we go. Whoops. Thread. This threading station is especially helpful for people who have depth perception issues, or some other reach issues. Some people can't quite reach far enough for what we're going to show you in the threading at the loom. And for some it's just more comfortable. Every now and then you want to stop and tie a safety knot. And a safety knot is nothing more than a slip knot. It will come out easily when I pull on that end, but it won't come out easily. Won't come out at all if my finger gets stuck in it. Won't come out easily if it's pulled against, if my reed were to fall off. Okay? So whatever you're comfortable with, but I would say no more than about an inch. Every inch or so, tie a safety knot so that you have a series of them going across your reed, and you will not be in tears should you drop it off. So here we are. I have we have just finished warping at the beaming station. I'm going to tie my last safety knot and get ready to tie this up to take it over to the loom. Now, a couple of things to note here that I really like about this beaming station, and that's the fact that I can use these lovely clip-on lights to have a lot of light while I'm warping. But unfortunately, to tie it up, I do need to take that light off. So hopefully the camera can keep up with this, because bye-bye light. Now, I'm going to take this off. And this top piece right here comes off. Okay? So now I can see the warp, I can see the reed, I have clear lines of sight of everything. I'm going to take this is my long cord again. I'm going to take my long cord and I'm going to lay back there. I'm going to come underneath the reed, go through, and I'm going to the bottom. I'm going underneath now. It does help if you get all of the entire length of your cord, and it helps if you don't stand on it. Okay, and I'm going to go underneath my warp. These are my 2 pieces of my long white thread. Okay, see that? There. And now I'm going to tie them up against the warp in a simple bow knot. Doesn't have to be anything fancy. It's a simple bow knot. Tie it. It's got everything held in one package. I'm going to tell you honestly, the first time I saw Kenzo do this, I nearly had heart failure. But remember, I showed you that those safety knots are going to hold. So don't have heart failure. I'm taking my warp roller out. And I'm going to take this entire package over to the loom. Are you going to come with me? Okay, let's go. I'm setting my warp roller down just so that it's out of my way. It just adds extra weight on the package if I were to try and hang this with it attached or going through the warp. So I'm going to, just a little point of it. It helps if you have these lined up when you go to hang them, because the inside of that loom is only about as wide as your harness. Into the loom it goes. Okay? And the hooks go through those holes just like we did on the removal and insertion of an inside set. Okay? It's now, the loom now has the weight of the warp package. Okay. I'm going to take and untie this bow and take my warp over the back beam. My cameraman's actually going to stay on this side of the loom because I want you to see what happens with my reed. I want you to see that it's going to be okay. All right? So I'm holding on to the warp and I've untied it. And that reed is just going to hang there. It's okay. I put my warp roller through. I put my disc in. And it's set. Now I'm coming to this side of the loom and putting my reed in place. It's all okay. Yes, I nearly had a heart attack the first time I saw that. I hope I didn't cause you to have one. Okay, now I'm putting my reed cap on. And we've got to get this puppy hooked up and checked to see if it's okay. So before we can do that, we need to put our cable on. Again, with this type of a break, we're going to go from the where it's attached, coming straight back, working around. I hope my head isn't in the way here. And clicked on, okay? Now we're going to come to the front and we're going to attach. Okay, so now we're going to tie up our petals, and then we're going to put our tie rod onto our threads. And I like putting my petals on now because I have clear access underneath my loom. And it's really easy then to get them on, okay? Now on the SX, without that cable put on, I can, and the clip still down, I can wind, I can take out the excess thread back onto the warp roller, okay? Take out my safety knots. Wasn't that nifty how they held when I let go? Somebody else tied safety knots for me. There we go. The most common thing that I see people want to do is they want to put that clipping tie rod in right here with all of this warp hanging down. And Kenzo and I had conversations about this just recently when I was in Japan, and he says, don't do that. Wind some of that back on. That's another 4 inches of weaving. So I'm going to hold onto the ends so that I can't wind it all the way back, okay? I have a safety net there somewhere, and I'm going to take my toe and I'm just going to wind this back a bit, watching where this comes to. And about that much on your first one, that's pretty good. Not too much, not too little. Now, I'm going to tell you a little secret here. When we were warping this one, you saw me intentionally make a mistake over here. I showed you what that would look like if I had a petal out where it wasn't supposed to be. And I asked Gene while he was warping this if he would make a couple of other ones for me. Probably have found that to be hard because he's really pretty good at warping, but we'll see if he was able to make some mistakes for me, because I want to be able to show you how easy they are to fix. I have my warp threads laying over my clipping tie rod, and I'm going to turn around so I can see the slot that my spline needs to go in. I want to make sure that my tie rod doesn't come all the way to the end of my reed, because I don't want it, when I go to roll on, I don't want to hit the latch on the cloth roller, because then I won't be able to roll onto the cloth beam. So here we go. In. Okay. Now I need to have that break on so that I can release and move forward. And now is an important time to have that on. Okay. So here, working from the outside to the inside, around and onto the screw. And the latch comes off so I can move it forward. I'm also going to make sure that my cords come up and over my breast beam. Okay? Grabbing both sides, holding onto that spline. I'm going to pull forward, and I'm going to roll 1/2 of a turn. This is not where it's going to be when we weave, but this is where it's going to be for right now because we need to check that warp. Get those back on, okay? I'm going to press down on my right foot. Oh, see right here? Something's going on. That's hanging down in there wrong. And see this here? Something's going on in there. Okay? Let's look and see what those look like when I press down on the other foot. Oh, you can see. This is why you always check with both feet. I'm going to hold on to this one. Yep, it's the same set of threads, because sometimes it might be different. So, I'm going to get a couple of things that are going to help make this process a lot easier, okay? I'll be right back. Okay, binder clips. Binder clips are my favorite thing for helping figure out what warp threads need to be fixed. And here's what you need to remember when you see that, when you push down and you go, oh my gosh, there's something wrong, I can't weave. First thing you need to do is breathe. The second thing we're going to do is to isolate the problem, one problem at a time. We see there are two here, we're going to do one at a time. And I'm going to start with the outermost and work across. Breathe, isolate the problem, breathe again, and then fix the problem at hand. So here's my problem, these two threads right here. I'll reach behind. It's these two threads right here. I'm not dealing with those threads. Okay, and I'm not dealing with these threads over here. I'm only dealing with these two threads right here. Now when I look at these two threads, I see, oh, this thread is going into my leftmost dent right here, and this thread is going is on the right hand side, but it's going around this other thread. So I'm only going to pull out this one thread. So I'm going to find it, back up at the front, and I'm going to gently just pull out that one thread. Look at there. Out from that reed, okay? Or from that tie rod. And I'm going to come through here. I'm going to come back around. Now it's clear. Need a heddle hook. Now it's clear of the heddle that it went around, and now I'm going to put it right back where it came through as soon as we find a heddle hook. So I've pulled out that one thread out from the tie rod. I have redirected it so that it's no longer going around the heddle next to it. And now I'm going to put it back in place. So see how I have these so far apart here? It makes it very obvious from the front side which dent I want to go through. I want to go through that one right there. And I'm going to catch this and I'm going to pull it through, okay? And for right now, I'm just going to leave it sitting right there, okay? That was number one. And now I'm taking these guys off, and letting those all go back. I'm going to hold on to this guy for just a minute while I go, where's my next problem? So, see, that one's all nice and fixed there now. Ooh, what's this guy? Is he in the right place? Yep, he would be on the down. And now he'd be up. Great. He's going to be just fine. These two. What's going on with these two? So I've isolated the two on the front side of the loom. I'm going to find the two on the back side of the loom. And now I'm going to separate so that I'm only dealing, the only two threads I can really see will be the two that are the problem. And see, I'm controlling them in my hand as I put these guys on. I can let go of them now because I have secured the other side. I've isolated the problem. And you know I'm breathing because I'm talking, okay? Isolated the problem. I have the two threads. My right hand thread is in the right hand heddle, and my left thread, that's in the left heddle. That looks all correct, but what's happening? There's a cross up here somewhere. The thread from the right hand side is going to the dent on the left, and the one on the left is going to the dent on the right. That is a classic crossed thread. Okay? So the best way to handle that is to come to the front, and we're going to gently pull those two threads out of that reed. They're coming out of, there we go. Or out of, not out of the reed, out of the tie rod. We're just gently pulling those right out like that. Okay? And now I'm going to come to the back. One on the right is on the right, the one on the left is on the left. Nice big space here, and look at all those extra dents we have. So I'm going to come through. I'm going to find the thread on the left. Whoops, and I'm going to pull it through. Okay? And I'm going to go over one here. Come to the back. Get that thread on the right. And pull it through. Now, do you see why you want to isolate and only deal with the threads that are the problem? You don't want all those extra threads hanging out in there, because if you do, you might pull the wrong one. But this way it was very, very clear which threads needed to be fixed. Okay? So now I'm going to release those back down. Clear shed, clear shed. Now some of you are going, yes, but Denise, you have threads that are not caught inside that clipping tie rod. You're right, I do. And this is what Kenzo said to do. I'm going to take them and I'm going to tuck them right down in there. I'm going to slide my cords off. And I'm going to roll, catching those underneath in there. One, that's 1.5 rolls. That's 2.5 rolls. Let's advance this just a little bit more. That's 3.5 rolls. I'm ending with my spline towards me, the weaver. I am putting the cords on with the knot on the top. And look at that. clear shed, and you wouldn't know that that thread isn't through that clip. It will hold just fine, and by the time you've got 3 picks going through weaving, it's going to be just fine. So I hope you've learned a lot on this one.